What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki learned the truth from the Kyuubi on the Wave Mission Part 1. You enjoy this story? Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. You don't know anything about pain. Inari cried. He had been watching these ninja that were protecting his family, mostly his grandfather. They were just a bunch of teens and some weird old guy. They could never understand his pain. Inari yelled at her son. She knew he was hurting ever since his father was killed and he had lost hope, but to yell at their protectors was just rude and she would not stand for it. We don't know about pain, huh? Naruto said quietly, but everyone heard him. There was something in his voice that normally wasn't there and it intrigued Sasuke, freaked Sakura out a bit, and scared Kakashi for reasons revolving around the Kyuubi. Yeah, Inari cried defiantly, but he soon felt cold and wondered why. The room's temperature had gone down because Naruto was very pissed and he just could not take this brat's words anymore. This change in character scared both his teammates and worried his sensei. However, his face is what scared them the most. It was devoid of emotion, but he was unconsciously spreading a chilling killer intent that was putting them all on edge. Inari felt it full force and was almost pissing his pants, and he felt that if Naruto smiled at all using that, well, he would be pissing his pants and fainting. Let me tell you something, Inari. Naruto stated with clear disdain in his voice. Somewhere in this world, people will always have it worse than you. So you lost your dad to some idiot tyrant who is controlling your village, but you still have your loving family and people that care enough to protect you and try and make your life better. Naruto held up a hand and put up 3 digits. 3, that's the number of people in this room who have it worse than you. The room seemed to get colder at this point and it was scaring and confusing Kakashi. This was not the feeling of the Kyuubi, it felt more like death. First is my teacher, the Cyclops over there. Judging from the way he acts, and he is always late, and from some of the rumors I have heard, he has lost a lot of friends and family in this career. At this, Sasuke and Sakura's eyes widened at that and they whipped their heads over to their teacher, who did look sad. From the rumors, he had lost his father around your age, then his teammates, which one of them must have been an Uchiha if that is anything to go by, and lastly, a man who he thought as a father figure, his old sensei and the 4th Hokage. Naruto said seriously, shocking his teammates, none more than Sasuke, as he looked at his teacher with more respect. Next we have Sasuke. Naruto said before he got right in Inari's face. Sasuke is the last of his clan. You want to know why? His elder killed off his entire clan, in one night. Surprisingly, there was a lot of venom in his voice. Now we have me, Naruto said, surprising Sakura a bit. She didn't know what to think of this side of Naruto. He was always so happy-go-lucky that she thought nothing got to him, even her punching him. Guess she was wrong. Naruto backed up from Inari, but he had that same blank but scary as hell look on his face. I was an orphan since birth, and you know what? Everyone in my village hates me since then. I was kicked out of the orphanage at 4 and lived on the street for a year until the Hokage, the first person to accept me, gave me my own apartment. Why would everyone hate him at birth? I thought it was just those annoying pranks. Sakura thought. At first I thought it was all just because I was born the night the Kyuubi demon attacked and the people of my village needed something to vent on and I was it. No, I recently figured out it is much worse. Naruto replied. All those years of repressed emotions was finally coming out. It was just sad that it was coming out on this boy, his family, and his team. He just could not stand it anymore. I am one of 9 people with the same problem. I am not seen as human, I am seen as lower than that, something that people see as nothing but trash in fear of our power, and it is not like we asked for it in the first place. It was force on us to create a weapon for our villages. Kakashi's eye was a dinner plate at this point. Naruto was literally telling a small boy, and everyone else what he truly was. However, he knew that the Hokage didn't actually see Naruto in that way. That was why he tried giving him a normal life, something that the villagers messed up. He messed up as well, it seems. He also could not stop Naruto, this was his choice after all. He just lowered his head in shame. What would his sensei think? I so sorry, Naruto. Sasuke didn't know what to think. All these things Naruto was speaking of didn't go along with what he sees of Naruto. The blonde idiot was like that because the villagers treated him like shit. Now that he thought of it, the academy teachers always had it out for Naruto, except for Iruka, who seemed to be trying to repair the damage. Why? Sakura lowered her head in shame. She followed her mother's word to the letter. And for what? Making someone feel this miserable because of a power that she was afraid of. That was ridiculous. I am a Jinchuriki, the power of human sacrifice. Nothing but trash to normal humans who see us as nothing more than a weapon, just like that one-eyed old man told me once when I was little, but I was too young to understand and didn't think much of it. Danzo got to him. Oh man, this is bad, Kakashi thought nervously. But after Mizuki's stunt, I get what I am now. I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The fourth Hokage could not kill it, so he sealed it in me. I am just a freak no one wants to be around. Naruto growled out before he walked towards the door. He knew his teammates heard that, and after this mission they would not want him on their team even more. He was giving them the time they needed. Where are you going? Kakashi asked. Out to train and let off some steam. Destroy a tree or something. Naruto growled out before he slammed the door. Poor kid, Tazuna said, finally speaking up. No one should treat children like that. Tsunami replied sadly. No one should, and I was not there for him when it meant something. Kakashi said deadly as his head hit the wall behind him, a tear going down one eye. I owe his father after all. Inari looked shell-shocked, and Naruto's words gave him something to think about. He did not hate Naruto. He was just a goofy older kid in his eyes. Just because he held something as powerful as the Kyuubi didn't mean that people had to hate him. Life was cruel. He learned that the hard way. Sasuke sat in his usual brooding position, but his mind was racing. What he went through was something like Naruto, they both knew great pain. How could he have no seen it? On the other hand, the Kyuubi was a different matter at all. He'd bet if an Uchiha had it in them, they wouldn't be treated as badly. To him, Naruto was a good person for enduring all these years and a powerful ally. He just needed to be trained better to be on par with him after all. Nodding to himself, he decided he would be a better friend to the blonde. He then blinked. You knew his father. Who was that? Kakashi eyed the boy and saw what was going through boy and inwardly smiled at the boy. It seemed that he had already accepted Naruto, in his own way. He then held the bridge of his nose and said, the Hokage might kill me if I tell you, since Naruto is not supposed to know because of the man's enemies. All he got was a glare from the boy. Of course, why would Sasuke care about that? Fine, just don't let him know you know, or the Hokage for that matter. His father is Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, and my teacher. Tazuna's family widened their eyes at that. Hell, even they knew who that man was, and Tazuna slapped his forehead. Yeah, you people ed up big time. Sasuke's eyes were twitching by this point. So Naruto was a Jinchuriki in the Hokage's heir. Tazuna was right. Suddenly there was a thud and they all saw that Sakura's head was against the wall and she was crying. Mother, you are such an idiot, and so am I for believing you. So he is the real hero. The fourth Hokage made his own son into the true hero of Konoha. She said aloud, making Kakashi blink. He thought she would be against Naruto because of her mother. You two don't hate Naruto either? Kakashi asked cautiously. No. My father often talked about him and he had full belief in the man and his seals. Sasuke said, bit nostalgic. I see Naruto as a powerful ally, if he was trained properly, and a worthy adversary. The fourth Hokage was trained by Jiraiya of the Sennin after all. A seal master. Sakura replied. I read enough about them that if that man used them, he did well with Naruto because he is not unstable like the other Jinchuriki I read about, mostly the Jinchuriki of Suna. He is just sad. Sakura looked really sad. I need to apologize to him later. Then a smile came to her face. Hinata is going to love this. I see. Kakashi replied. Then I guess things go as normal then. Kakashi replied happily that his students accepted Naruto. XXX. Arg. Naruto yelled as he destroyed his current training ground with his clones. He had been doing that for hours with loads of clones. Suddenly, he fell on his face and passed out. He had tired himself out. However, something wanted to speak with him. X Mindscape X. Naruto awoke in what looked to be a sewer. He was also in a very large room. Looked around closer. He guessed this was the Kyuubi's cage, judging by all the bars at the end and the tag for seal on one of them. So, this must be Kyuubi's seal, huh? You would be correct, brat. The fox's booming voice said as he lazily opened one eye to look at the blonde from his lying position. You don't seem that threatening to me. Naruto commented. Faye, what would you know about threatening? Besides, there is a reason I called you down here. And that is, Naruto asked, slightly put off. Since you told those other humans about me, life is going to be harder for you in Konoha. I will give you a reason to not go back there. At Naruto's questioning look, the old fox continued. I know who your parents were. Really? How? Naruto asked while narrowing his eyes, looking for trickery. The Kyuubi lazily looked at the blonde and said, how could I not? I was in your mother as well. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes widened at that. His mother was a Jinchuriki and she managed to have him. Maybe there was hope for him. And it was nice to finally hear the name of his mother. So, I am your second Jinchuriki. Try third, brat. The first Hokage's wife was the first after he beat Madara, who was controlling me. Now, as for your father, you already know who he is, after all he sealed me into you. Naruto fell to his knees at that. Somehow, I always knew. But this makes the pain worse. Not just for me, but for the villagers as well. He said, making the Kyuubi eye the boy. It would seem the blonde was going through a change. I am the reminder of lost loved ones and I look just like him, making it worse for them. How can they ever accept that? Now do you see why you need to leave that place? But, where would I go? Naruto asked. The Kyuubi seems to ponder this for a while. Since you know nothing of your heritage as an Uzumaki, I think it could be safe to recreate a powerful Uzumaki I used to run with before he was killed by Madara. The Grim Reaper as he was called. The giant fox then told Naruto all of his old adventures with the Grim Reaper, their fight with Madara Uchiha, the fight with the Hokage, and finally that night when Naruto was born. Right, I'll go along with this, but this better not be a trick. Naruto replied. After hearing the fox's story, he felt that the Kyuubi was painted in the wrong light. He just hoped that his newfound trust in the Kyuubi didn't backfire. After all, foxes were tricksters and he had to be on guard. Where do we go to find these weapons that the Grim Reaper used? Luckily for you, brat, there is a nearby seaside cave. It is hidden by a genjutsu that is about to run out of chakra soon. Don't really remember when, but all that you need is in there. The blonde nodded and left the mindscape. The Kyuubi looked at the spot Naruto had been in before he fell back asleep, waiting for the events to come. XXX. When Naruto awoke, he noticed it was very early morning and that someone was inches away from waking him themselves. Looking closer, he noticed it was a girl that looked shocked. She had beautiful raven hair and a pink kimono. Yo, was all he said. The girl quickly composed herself and said, what are you doing out here? You'll catch a cold sleeping out here. Oh, don't worry about that. I am a ninja, I can handle a little cold. Naruto said proudly. His mood had improved since last night, so there was no reason not to be civil to the girl. Ah, so I was right in assuming that, since you had a ninja headband. I am Haku, by the way. I am Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde replied. Haku smiled. Nice to meet you, Naruto. Tell me, do you have something to fight for? Naruto's smile dropped as he thought about that. The only person he thought of was Kyuubi, but he could fend for himself, in his mindscape. I am not sure anymore. I thought I did, but recently. I am just not sure. I see. Haku replied and he saw it. Their team didn't really act like one from what he saw. Well, let me tell you something. When you are fighting for something important to you, that's when you become truly strong. I guess that is something to think about. Naruto replied. Haku nodded as he stood up and started to leave, but he turned back and said, oh, and just so you know, I am a boy. Naruto froze in place at that. He could hear Kyuubi laughing in his head. The hell, he is prettier than Sakura. He then composed himself and said aloud as he made his own exit. That's fine, Haku, but I have found a way for both sides to come out of this mission unscathed. I'd get Zabuza out of this place soon if I were you. Don't worry though, you'll get your money. Haku stood stock still before he whirled around, but Naruto was already gone. Oh, he had to tell Zabuza about this. XXX. Naruto, following Kyuubi's directions, found the cave with ease because the genjutsu seemed to have run out of chakra to hold it up. Inside, it was dark and cold. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, but it felt unnatural. Like the darkness was alive and the cold felt like it wanted to pull you further into the darkness that awaited you. It was unnerving, to say the least. Naruto, despite all this, just walked in like it was nothing, that or he didn't care. However, he was surprised that this cave was so small because he found the back pretty quick. In the back, there was a small chamber with two pedestals. On them were weapons. One was a fairly large scythe. It had a plain black handle and the blade was polished chakra metal. The darkness seemed to be pulled in by this strange weapon. The other weapon was just as strange. It was a chained weapon with hook-like claws on the ends that glowed a dull purple. Kyuubi chose that moment to speak through their link. That scythe is called the Death Scythe, the main weapon of the Shinigami. That strange chain is called the Claws of Hades, named after ancient death god. Take them both to revive the legend in you. Naruto nodded as he placed a hand on each of the weapons and was instantly assaulted by images of the past. A man with spiky red hair and a giant fox by his side as they fought large-scale battles. He was part of a large clan with other red-haired people and he even had a wife, a beautiful blonde woman. Soon it was over and he felt the power coming off the weapons. He attached the chain hooks to his belt before. Suddenly, the staff of the scythe shortened and he attached that to his waist as well, since it was shorter. Nodding to himself, he walked out of the cave to his next destination, Gado's mansion. A few hours later, Naruto found a fairly large building that was obviously Gado's since it was not run down like all the other buildings in Wave. Oh yeah, that man had plenty of money to spare, because he was not going to be able to use it by the end of the day. XXX. The remnants of Team 7 rushed over to the smoke-filled area. A large mansion was on fire, or what was left of it after that huge explosion they saw and heard all throughout Wave. Kakashi was inwardly cheering, thinking whoever did this saved them a lot of trouble. That is until he saw something that made his blood cold. Near the edge of the fire, was a shredded orange jacket with blood on it. He picked it up and knuckles whitened. When you said you wanted to destroy something, I didn't think it would be this. Did you get in over your head, Naruto? Sasuke saw it and growled to himself. But stopped when they heard Sakura gasp. They ran over to her to see what she saw. Pinned to a tree by a kunai, was Naruto's headband and it was heavily cracked like a spider web. The big question was, where was Naruto and was he even okay? You fool, I should just kill you now. Zabuza shouted at the blonde known as Naruto Uzumaki. They had just escaped to the outskirts of Wave. Naruto had raided Gado's mansion and took all the valuables. He gave half of it to Wave and gave the rest to the now enraged Nukenin and his apprentice, Haku. I did it and there is nothing you can do to reverse what has been done. Naruto said with a glare before he took out a folder. Besides, he was going to have you and Haku killed once you got the job done. Zabuza stared at the blonde former Konoha ninja, then he took the folder and flipped through it. What he saw pissed him off. That bastard was going to sell my body to Kiri. He grabbed his sword and sliced right through a tree in anger. He then stared at Naruto for a moment. Haku had told him of the blonde's exploits within Gado's mansion. He could honestly say he was a bit impressed, but he was already intrigued with the boy with his unusual maneuvers to get his old teacher out of the water prison. If he was to guess, he would say that the blonde was not a normal genius by any means, but a battle genius. He could use that. Also, he silently thanked those mercs for shredding that god-awful orange jacket. He needed to get this kid new clothes befitting a ninja. Not that orange crap. That line of thought made him pause. It was like he was already this kid's new teacher. I see your point, brat, but what now? Are you going to go back to those Leaf Nin? Zabuza asked while Haku continued to stay quiet. He hated that. Most of the time, Haku acted like a emotionless drone. It was fine of the battlefield but not in normal life. Was his training that bad? He hoped the blonde brat didn't go back to Konoha. Haku needed a friend. Naruto scowled. No, I bring nothing but pain to them. At Zabuza's questioning look, He continued. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the son of the 4th Hokage and 3rd Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Haku actually let loose some emotion at that. It was not fear or hatred. It was shock and hopefulness. Someone had been through pain like him, somewhat. He was sure Naruto had it worse, but he just hoped they could bond over it. Zabuza looked both shocked and skeptical about that. He was shocked that the Yellow Flash's brat was in front of him. The kid looked just like him, but the whisker makes were what made him look a bit different. Also, since when did Konoha have a Jinchuriki? Konoha for the most part never seemed like that had a Jinchuriki to start with. I was not even aware of the first two. Not many would, since the first one was the first Hokage, wife. Zabuza's eye twitched at that. The second one was my mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Zabuza had a mini heart attack at that. In front of him was not just the son of the Yellow Flash, but the hot-blooded habanero. Holy shit. That same chick who saved my when I was a kid. Dear God, this kid is a true ninja prodigy. I have got to get him on my side. I see. The man said, trying to look calm. What do you plan on doing now? I hadn't thought that far ahead yet. Naruto replied exasperatedly as he hung his head. Zabuza actually chuckled at that. This kid was interesting. Not all that bright, but seemed to make anyone see the good in him. Konoha obliviously screwed up. He hit a freaking gold mine. It was said that Kushina could change the hearts of her enemies, sometimes. Man, this kid had it too if he was considering training the boy. Alright then, kid. How about this? While I fully recover, I will teach you alongside Haku. I will make you into a competent shinobi. Not an idiot who relies on luck alone. What do you say? I'll do it, Naruto replied. The stories about this guy are a bit out there, but he was determined to get stronger, even if he had to take the demon of the mist as a master. Haku actually smiled at that. Well, glad to see I am not alone in the training anymore. Yeah, so do I call you senpai now? Naruto asked with a goofy grin. Haku's smile grew. I would not mind that. I am older than you after all. Zabuza just let a small smirk grace his masked face as he watched the two interact. XXX. A week later, the small group of Nukenin were in a clearing. Zabuza felt that they were safe enough to begin training. Zabuza stared at Naruto intently. He had shown good skills when they fought off some idiot bandits, so he was sure Naruto had more tricks up his sleeves. One such trick was the two strange weapons the boy had at his sides. Kid, I have got to ask, what is with those weapons? Oh, I got these before leaving Wave. Apparently, they belong to a ninja the Kyuubi used to run with before he was sealed within Mito Uzumaki. The fox called him the Grim Reaper. Naruto said with a shrug. Zabuza took a step back in shock. Are you kidding me? You're a mainline Uzumaki. Huh? Naruto asked. Haku decided to help him on this. Naruto-kun, he means that only the main family of the Uzumaki clan can use those weapons. For the Grim Reaper was married into the main line, and I think Mito was a daughter of his, or a granddaughter, I am not sure. Before Naruto could really answer, the Kyuubi's voice spoke into his mind. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. You had to be a descendant of the guy to be even allowed in the cave, but if you forced your way in, that atmosphere you felt would have killed you and I would not have been able to save you. Oh, now you tell me. Naruto grumbled as he held head in annoyance. Apparently I am the guy's descendant, otherwise I would have died. I see. So you just talked to the Kyuubi there as well. I wonder if I could teach you how to use its power. Probably not. Zabuza mused. That would be a hard and dangerous task. Way too dangerous for him anyway. We'll see what we can do. Now, tell about the weapons. Well, Kyuubi called this one the Claws of Hades. The hooks look like they have a strange yet dark power. The other is a scythe called the Death Scythe. It feels like it has a dark power as well. Naruto commented. So, the legends were true. Zabuza said to himself. He really wanted the weapons for himself, but he was no fool. Only an Uzumaki could actually use those. Right then, I will teach you how to use those weapons as well, but before that, here. He gave the blonde a blank square piece of paper. What's this for? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. It will tell us what type of chakra you have. Haku replied. For example, I am an ice user. So I have a high affinity for wind and water. Alright then, Naruto said with a shrug as he channeled chakra into it, the results surprising everyone. The paper gained multiple lines on it before splitting off. Then those pieces changed themselves. A third of the pieces became soggy, some of them burned up, and the rest had a strange reaction. They became dark and wispy. Interesting. Zabuza commented, eyeing all the pieces, but mostly the strange ones. It would seem you have a strong affinity to wind while having smaller affinities for water, fire, and if I am correct, darkness, caused by your interaction with the death weapons. Zabuza held the bridge of his nose. This is going to be a lot of training. Wait a second. Naruto, how many of those shadow clones can you make? Ooh, I don't know. Naruto replied with a shrug. The most I ever made was about 500 when I had to beat Mizuki Tem for making me steal the Forbidden Scroll and almost killing Iruka-sensei. But hell, I wasn't even tired. The old man told me it took a lot of chakra, but I don't feel the effects. Gold mine. Screw you Konoha. Zabuza thought happily. Damn, this kid was going to go far, and maybe if they gained a lot more people and money, they could rejoin the Mist Rebels. He hoped Mei was okay. Hell, she could melt his balls off, so yeah, she was fine. Fantastic. Let me tell you a secret about that jutsu. You can train with it because anything it learns, excluding physical aspects, you learn. Arg, that would have so useful in the academy. Naruto groaned, making Haku laugh and Zabuza to chuckle darkly. Alright kid, for the next month, we will be on the road a lot, and so, we will be training a lot as well. Get ready for hell, Zabuza said with a glint in his eye and dark chuckle that made Naruto shiver. XXX, not going into the training. Boring for me to read and even more to type. Careful, I heard Orochimaru of the Sannin has been in the area. Zabuza said seriously. They were currently in a land that bordered rice, fire, and water. The hell is he doing here? Naruto asked with annoyance. He had changed his attire in that month. With the money he had taken from Gato, Zabuza decided that Naruto needed new clothes as he was going to train an orange-wearing fool. The blonde's attire now consisted of black steel-toed combat boots, a pair of the black pants that had multiple pockets, and a black wife beater. He didn't feel like he needed a jacket or anything like that, yet. And with no headband, his hair was slightly covering his eyes. Speaking of hair, it was less unruly when longer as it clumped together in larger spikes. At times, it would seem that a spike was covering an eye. If you listened on in the conversations people have when we pass through villages and towns, you would know why, Naruto-kun. Haku kindly stated. However, Naruto knew enough about the boy now that he knew that Haku was insulting him. Haku seemed like a kind person and he kept that persona even when he would be degrading someone. It was nerve-wracking sometimes. Word is, the man is recruiting people for Otogakure, an up-and-coming village that he is leading himself. Great, Naruto replied as he eyed his best friend. Haku still wore the same battle attire and kept the Kiri hunter mask, but he just wished that he would dress normal when they were in town. I mean, he had to pretend the boy was his older sister while in town. Correct Haku. Zabuza replied. Just be careful just in case. I'd rather not fight the man if I can help it. The group was nearing a small village and unfortunately, since they were near water country, people seemed skittish around bloodline users. However, they came there for a reason. Zabuza had heard about a girl there that had a bloodline, and it was very unique to say the least. It sounded like something that belonged in Earth Country. Right, Naruto said. He didn't think he was ready to someone like a Sennin just yet. Sure, he would fight to protect his new family as he saw them, but he would probably die. As they walked through the town, he thought about his training. Suffice to say, Zabuza was a enslaving driver. While the man had his clones working on various jutsu, chakra control exercises, and elemental manipulation, he had the original in taijutsu training. The man noticed that Naruto had to decent taijutsu style, so he taught the boy a little of everything since he was a sword expert. And when not training his body, he was training with his weapons. How Zabuza even knew how to use a chained weapon was beyond him. When asked, he pawned it off to some guy in Iron Country, whoever that was. The scythe was just trial and error since it not a usual shinobi weapon. He was so engrossed in his own thoughts that he almost missed a commotion at the end of the street. Almost. They looked past the mob to see a girl on her knees with a rather large bump on her head. Someone must have hit her in the head. Naruto growled at that, and by the look on Haku's currently unmasked face, he didn't like it as well. Found her already? That was quick. Zabuza thought. You two handle this, I am going to go and get a drink. Yeah, whatever, sensei. They should call you the lazy demon instead. Naruto growled. Haku was somewhat amused at their banter. He was used to it by now. Zabuza, while a hard ninja, cared for the both of them like his own sons, he just didn't like showing it though. Just go and help the girl, brat. Zabuza said as he walked away, waving them off. It looks like it could get worse, Naruto-kun. We must hurry. Haku said as he looked back at the girl in worry. Worry about Zabuza-sama later. Right. Naruto confirmed as he and Haku disappeared over to the girl a moment later via body fare. Leave her alone. I won't like it, but we will kill you if you continue this foolishness. Haku replied in kind. Why are you defending this little witch? A female village spat with venom. I see no witch. Haku replied, making the girl eye him in shock. Yeah, all we see is a group of dumbasses picking on a girl. Naruto said. She has a bloodline. We are following Mist's example and killing her. Fools. Naruto said while his hair over his eyes. He eyed Haku and nodded to the boy. Haku knew what that meant. They would have to apply a scare tactic they had recently developed with Naruto's death powers and Haku's ice. Naruto silently extended his scythe and showed these people that face. As that was going on, Haku was making the air temperature drop and ice was forming around them, mostly Naruto. The girl behind them was not affected, but she was shocked that random strangers were helping her of all people. Maybe there were good people in the world after all. The crowd was silently freaking out at that two boys in front of them, but Naruto had captured all their attention when his scythe started generating wisps of darkness that converged onto Naruto, seemingly making his skin fade away to show nothing but bleach white bones. You fools. You must have seen ninja before. They showed powers similar to the bloodline users. No, you are just afraid, but you turn that hatred into a never-ending cycle. Naruto said in a hollow voice. Leave now or I will kill you. It's the Shinigami. The random villager screamed before the crowd quickly dispersed in a panic. The darkness left Naruto's form, making him revert back to normal. The feeling of dread in the air was now gone and the girl stared at him and Haku in awe, a little jealous of their power. The two boys turned around to take a look at the girl, taking in her features. She had fair skin, dark eyes and light blue hair which she kept in a spiky ponytail with long strands of hair framing her face. She wore a teal short kimono with a gray turtleneck and short sleeves with a jade green rope belt around his waist, and red shorts, light purple wristbands and navy blue sandals. Haku smiled kindly. Hello, I am Haku Yuki and this one is Naruto Uzumaki. Are you alright? The girl stared at Haku for a moment. While he seemed strong, he looked like a freaking girl. Well, his face did anyway. She then turned her head to the blonde and smirked. He seemed like the stronger of the two and well, she wondered if that dead-like state was a bloodline. Hell, Haku could have the ice bloodline for all she knew. Yes, I am. Thank you. My name is Gurren Lagann. She paused for a moment and then asked. Why are you here anyway? This village is pretty out of the way. Simple. Our sensei heard about your unique bloodline and your situation. Naruto replied. Hell, is it similar to ours? Your bloodline users as well? Gurren asked in shock. Sort of. I am an ice user, which is bloodline from Kiri. Haku stated before eyeing Naruto, wondering if the blonde would tell his secret. Naruto smiled as well. Yeah, I am not a bloodline user. I am the Jinchuriki from Konoha. Gurren stared wide-eyed at that too. They were people who understood her pain. And they were strong. She liked that. Yes, she heard what Konoha did to their Jinchuriki. It was sad, but it connected them. So, your sensei must pretty strong and level-headed to deal with you and make you strong and he is looking for another. I am your gal then. Naruto and Haku looked at each other in amusement. This girl, despite the abuse, was pretty full of herself. You hit the nail on the head, kid. Zabuza's voice stated. Said man came up right behind them and put his hands on the boy's shoulders. I have made them strong in my own way. However, they were already strong in their own right. I see that same strength in you, Gurren. Haku, My first apprentice was an orphan boy who had just killed his father during the bloodline purges and still retained his kind nature. Naruto, my second apprentice. He was treated as the thing he holds inside him, and yet, he is still a goofy idiot who can change people's hearts. Gurren smiled at that. Sure, she knew who this man was and was entirely surprised at his behavior due to the rumors around the man. If what he said was true, then Naruto does have that power. I accept, she said with full determination and a bit of smugness. Now there is you, Gurren, my third apprentice. I can see that despite your own hardships, you have retained a bit of smugness and, if I am not mistaken, a bit of vanity as well. Zabuza stated. Gurren blushed at that. You could say that. Then she took on a smug look as he produced a pink crystal and looked at her own reflection. But you do have to admit, I am pretty hot for a 15-year-old. Zabuza said nothing, a bit annoyed already. However, Naruto, being the smartass he is, stated, I agree, and while a beauty such as yourself is now a part of our group, maybe you can teach Haku here how to be a real girl. Haku steamed at that. What was that, Naruto-kun? Well, come one man, you dress like a girl, you have the looks of a girl, and I am pretty sure this beauty can help you be a girl. Naruto joked around with a big smile. Gurren was already seeing the team dynamic between these two and was intrigued. However, now came her personality into the mix. She sauntered up to the blonde with a sly smile. My, coming onto me already, Blondie. While I admit Mr. Girly could use a few pointers, are you sure you want him as a true girl? You know, you could just have me. Naruto froze, stuck in his own prank and with a slack jaw. Zabuza roared with laughter, glad that someone finally got him. Haku smiled kindly, but this time it seemed very creepy. Well, she turned that on you pretty quick, didn't she? At Naruto's noncoherent blabber, Gurren laughed. Oh yeah, this will be fun. But don't worry, Blondie, I am not that into you. I actually think I could go for the girly one. What? Haku almost shouted, completely off guard. Gurren chuckled before walking to the exit of the village. Don't just stand there, boys, let's get a move on. At Naruto and Haku's gobsmacked expressions, Zabuza smirked as he followed after the girl. Oh yeah, you two are so screwed. The two remained in place for a few seconds before they got out of their daze and ran after them. Their little group had gotten a hell of a lot more interesting. XXX. Zabuza grimaced at the news he just heard while he and his students were eating at a restaurant a few villages over. It had been a day since they led and there was already bad news. He had been right about Orochimaru being in the area, and it seemed that he was after Gurren. However, since she was not there, the sick man destroyed the entire village before disappearing. Why are things never easy? Oh well, it could not be helped. Now to focus on their training. He would have to help Gurren develop her own techniques, just like he was doing with Haku and his ice. Naruto, however, was another story. His death jutsu was very interesting, but he needed more variety to his attacks. Nodding to himself, he addressed the kids. Okay, here is how training will go. Naruto, your clones will work on the next stage of elemental manipulation for your elements and work on some of the jutsu that Gato had in his private collection. Those are rightly yours since you killed him and blew up his place. However, I think it would be best if we branch out more. I want you to find something of seals. Your family excelled in those and I am sure you can too. Naruto smirked. I captain of the bloody massacre. He said with a goofy grin as he used his darkness to manipulate his saluting hand and eyes to go all dead-like, scaring a few nearby customers. Knock it off, dumbass. Zabuza raged at Naruto as he whacked him upside the head. Now, on to Haku. I want you to work on your speed. If possible, work with Naruto in the taijutsu department. He has good speed and enhanced strength due to the fox. Also, we need to think up some more jutsu for you. Using the same thing over and over could make you predictable. Yes, sir. Haku said respectfully. Gurren, I think I can help you with your future jutsu. I knew a guy who could do something similar. We will have to work on that. We will also see about your taijutsu. I also want to try and teach you about poisons since Haku here is into the medical field as well. That way he have a few more bases covered. Zabuza ended. Sounds like a plan, big man. Gurren replied. Good, and Gurren, Just ask both boys, my training is hell. Zabuza replied with an evil look that made the girl shiver. XXX. Kakashi sighed as he looked at the memorial stone in sadness. His team had returned about a week ago and things were not great at all. After finding out that Naruto was Mia, the Hokage was enraged, especially when Kakashi told him that Naruto confessed about the Kyuubi. Now, imagine the elderly Hokage's surprise when he saw Kakashi's remaining students support Naruto and even go so far as to say they would bring back their friend and hero. Still, Naruto's disappearance had proved how dark the citizens on Konoha had gotten. They fell from grace many years ago with their arrogance in his eyes, but now, celebrating the loss of the Naruto was a new low, even for them. In his and Kakashi's eyes, Konoha had true fallen. After that, the parents, with Naruto no longer there, spread word of Naruto's true condition and that created a rift within the village. The younger generation respected Naruto now more than ever and they resented the elder generation for what they did to Naruto. The rift widened even more when Sasuke and Sakura told people of Naruto's father. It wasn't just a generation thing after that. It was near panic for everyone. The village looked to be at the brink of their first civil war all because of the third Hokage's foolish decisions. No, this did not bode well at all. Things have been pretty hectic for Zabuza since that day he took in Gurren. The three brats got along pretty well and messed with each other a lot. Like how Gurren took advantage of Naruto's simple-mindedness at times. But he had to divide his attention a lot and those little brats gave it to him good when he was not truly paying attention. Naruto had resumed his pranking and dragged Haku and Gurren into it. It was driving him up the wall, but thinking on it, he wouldn't trade these kids for all the gold in the world. Yes, he still had plans to go back to Mist and kill the Mizukage with Mei. He owed her that much for just up and disappearing after his failed attempt of killing the Mizukage. However, he knew these kids were far from ready to go against a Kage and fully trained Jinchuriki nonetheless. Truth was, he was just afraid to face the woman. Yes, that's right, even the feared demon of the mist could be afraid. He was afraid because he feared what the woman would think of him. They had been friends since after the Genin exams. They were on the same team before he joined the swordsmen. Then, they went out and he wanted to propose to her, but the Mizukage was getting nervous again and was cracking down even harder on the bloodline users. After that, things all went to hell all because he wanted a family of his own. Hey, he had a family now, he just needed a loving wife. But life is cruel like that. Thinking about his students, he looked to his newest student, who was teasing the boys. They were currently at a co-ed hot spring, relaxing. Gurren was quiet the shinobi with hear poison skills. Her keen perception of her surroundings and of fights gave her a dangerous mind in battle and it helped her teammates with their fighting styles. Her powers over the crystal release were impressive. Finally, after a month or so of work on her earth manipulation, she was getting better at standalone earth jutsu and it was helping with her crystal jutsu as well. Then there was Haku, his first apprentice. He had gotten faster like he wanted and he often wondered if Haku had a second bloodline. It wouldn't be unheard of, just rare. Now if he did have a second bloodline, he hoped it was the swift release because it would explain Haku's rare bursts of pure speed where no one could keep up with him. In addition to that, Haku had gained a few more ice jutsu. Hell, he was also getting into medical jutsu from a scroll he picked up in town they passed. He was doing well. Finally was Naruto, one of his best students. Konoha was full of a bunch of fools if they let this kid get away. His shadow clone jutsu really sped up his training. He had full mastery over wind and fire. All he needed to do was actually make his own jutsu for those, unless he already did and the demon of the mist didn't know it. Now came the fun part. Water. He was going to take them to the desert for a reason. If Naruto and Haku could pull water out of that air, then they could pull it out anywhere. Naruto also seemed to have good control of the darkness element. Zabuza guessed it was because of those weapons, but he could be wrong. And then there was Kyuubi. Zabuza was not proud about what he did to bring the beast out, but Naruto could now use its power, if barely. Zabuza knew he had a lot more work to do with these kids, but that was the challenge of it. They were already pretty strong for their age and they didn't have a village to hold them back with stupid D-rank missions. Now that was a thought. Maybe he should get them a few missions. Oh Haku, I didn't know you wear this forward. Gurren laughed. I didn't mean it. Haku freaked. Naruto could be heard laughing. Come on girly boy, don't tell me you haven't thought about it. Or are you gay? Oh Naruto, don't be so hard on him. I bet you're just jealous of the position he is in. Gurren said. I think any guy would be. He is just the lucky one. Naruto grumbled aloud. This again. Zabuza groaned. XXX. The gang made it to the desert like Zabuza had planned a few days later. Man, it's so hot. Naruto complained and his companions did not argue about that. It was freaking scorching out. Come to think of it, why are we here? Haku asked. For the next stage of training for you two. Zabuza answered. Haku, I am sure you can teach Naruto the second part of stage 2 of water manipulation. I know you know this, but last time it was easy because of the environment we were in. If the two of you can pull water out of this environment, then your training for water manipulation will be complete. What about me? Gurren asked. While they are doing what I told them to do over by that outcropping of rock, we will be over in that oasis over there, sparring. At least I hope it is an oasis. Gurren's sweat dropped at that. Zabuza was already suffering from the heat. Come on, I want to see how far you are. Gurren nodded and followed after her, hopefully not delirious, sensei. Well, Naruto sighed. Let's do our thing. Haku nodded while looking at Gurren as she and their sensei left. XXX. After Haku had taught him what to do, Naruto quickly got to work, but each time Haku tried pulling water out of the air, it just got hotter. Haku's mind, however, was not on his task. It was on a certain female member of their group. Naruto, what do you think of Gurren? Naruto stopped for a moment to consider the question before he went back to concentrating. Odd question man, but I think she is pretty cool. Sure she is flirtier than me and I am still clueless to girls' feelings toward me, but I don't think she is for me. I want someone closer in age to me. He then eyed Haku and smirked. So my female-looking friend, do you like her like that? Haku shook his head at his best friend's constant use of calling him girly-looking. You could say that. What do you think I should do? Naruto gave him a stupid look. Are you deaf? I just told you how clueless I am towards girls feeling towards me and you want advice from a guy like that. But you flirt with Gurren. Haku countered. Harmless, which will never get me anywhere. Naruto replied nonchalantly. But even though I am clueless with things toward me, I can see how she looks at you. Take for example the incident at the hot springs. If that had been me that, accidentally, got pushed and then slipped and fell into her s, she would have beat my head in. She has a thing for you man, just ask her out. Haku put on an annoyed look. Sure he was graceful for the advice but Naruto just admitted he pushed him. So it was you. Haku shouted as he flung a ball of water at the blonde's face. This water is not even refreshingly cold Haku. Naruto deadpanned, expecting it to be cold due to his powers. However, they both were smiling after a moment. Sure they would fight, but they would always help each other out. Thanks Naruto. Haku replied. No, really, why is it not cold? Naruto whined as he unwittingly used his chakra to pull some water out the air and flung it at the ice user. Sorry, I am at a disadvantage here in the desert. Haku smiled, but his tone was snide as he dodged the water. Their banter went on for a few minutes longer, their minds not on the water control at all but they were actually doing it and the air was getting drier. And now my friend, we need to get you a girl. Haku said happily. Oh don't go there man, you still have to ask Gurren out. Naruto said as he lost a bit of control and pulled too much out of the air. The rest was a large globe of water that shot past Haku. They didn't realize it, but their water fight had taken them past a small outcropping of rocks. Now they were near a large nest of scorpions. Normally that wasn't so bad, but these were huge. Merchant cart huge and the water splashed right into their nest. Oh, no, Haku replied quietly and fearfully but the large desert dwellers heard him and turned. I think we should run. Naruto deadpanned, realizing his mistake. You think? Haku screamed as they ran for it. XXX. You did well Gurren, Zabuza said as he saw on a rock near the water of the oasis. You still beat me, even in your weakened, delirious state. Gurren sighed. I guess you really are strong. Well, I have been training on my own as well. I am nowhere near S class and I have to protect my students somehow. Gurren smiled. Her teacher was a big softy despite his reputation. She smiled as she leaned on the man's shoulder. I am glad you guys found me instead of that freak who killed off my entire village. Zabuza, still uncomfortable with his feelings with these kids, just wrapped his arm around the girl. Gurren closed her eyes for a moment, ignoring the heat of the desert, before she snapped them open. The ground is shaking. What? Zabuza asked, wondering if she was getting as sick as he was. The earth is shaking despite most of it being sand. Gurren freaked as they stood up and a few seconds later, Zabuza felt it and tried to keep his lunch in. Ah! Came the screams of the soaked forms Naruto and Haku as they ran past them. Zabuza looked at them like they were nuts. What's after them? He asked. Scorpions. Gurren screamed before she too ran away. Scorpions. They can't be that bad, can they? The demon of the mist asked before he turned around only to pale. Son of a bitch. XXX. Orochimaru smiled that sly snake-like smile of his as he and his guards met with the fourth Cage and his guards in a mountainous region of Suna, which was basically near Suna itself. However, while Gaara's father wanted to get more business back from Konoha, he didn't feel that this man would keep his word. He had the sinking feeling, despite his power, he could not beat Orochimaru in a fair fight. No, this had to end. Konoha was still their ally and maybe he could talk to the Hokage for a better deal. That old man was not unreasonable after all. Hello Cage. Have you decided about our deal? Orochimaru asked in his odd airy voice that sent chills down people's spines. I have Orochimaru. The Cage replied in an even tone. And? The snake man asked, already getting tired of this runaround. We will not join you for your foolish endeavors. I will speak to the Hokage personally about what is happening. He is not unreasonable. The leader of Suna replied. How? Disappointing. I fear, Orochimaru was going to kill the man one way or another, but there was something wrong. He felt the earth they were on shake. Was that even possible in this land? He looked to where he thought the source was and he got an eyeful of kids and one adult running for their lives. In fact, they would be running right past them. Why? Ah, Naruto, the young blonde screamed in fear as he ran past. His darkness powers acting up and making look like a running skeleton in the desert at times. Why do you always get us in these situations, Naruto? Haku, a girly-looking boy, cried out to the heavens as he kept pace with his friend. You were supposed to keep an eye on that fool so this shit doesn't happen, Haku. Gurren, a blue-haired girl shouted angrily yet panicked at the time. Wait, isn't that the crystal user? The snake man thought in shock. I am going to kill you brats for this. I am in no condition to fight those things. Zabuza, a notable Nuknin shouted as he too was running for his life. He got the girl, Orochimaru thought angrily. Meanwhile, the Cage knew what Orochimaru was about to do and was thanking his lucky stars that those kids, mainly the blonde one, and oddly enough, the demon of the mist, made a great distraction for him and his guards. However, he knew what was after them with scent alone. Suna's little scorpion problem. So he made his special gold clone and signaled for his men as to go help that group that just ran by and to secretly kill off Orochimaru's men. He would deal with the scorpion and snake problems all in one. And sure enough, they came. Apparently, by what those kids were shouting, the blonde must have disturbed a nest of the big ones. The Cage thought as he sent in his gold dust to weigh them down. At this point, Orochimaru got the point as he took out his special sword to run them all through, unknowingly getting some of the gold dust on him. While one final swing, the madly smiling man ran the Cage through. Nothing personal, but I need your pathetic village. Your ninja will make great cannon fodder for the ninja of Konoha. Orochimaru teased to the dying man. The Cage clone looked up to Orochimaru in fear before that look turned into a smirk. Sorry, but I am not dying today. Orochimaru tried to retaliate, he really did, but he felt weighed down too much. For a senin, he was moving at a snail's pace and that was not boding well for him as he tried to escape. Go figure that the body of the Cage exploded in a shower of gold dust before all that attached itself to him. As it stopped all movement, it was slowly covering his body. It was like looking at a statue. Ah, when I get out of this I will kill you. Orochimaru screamed in rage. Not even you can get out of that, prepare to die. The cage said calmly as he appeared before the man and took his fallen sword. I will be back. And I will kill you all. Orochimaru screamed in rage, but knowing that even if one curse seal was active, he could return. With that, the gold covered his face and the cage looked on in respect. Today, Orochimaru of the Sannin dies. Gold style. Golden impact. The golden man flew into the air before it started caving in on itself into a large gold ball. With a wave of his hand, the ball soared down to the ground, creating a crater in the sand, which soon filled up. Be lost within the sands for all time. The cage stated to his fallen enemy before disappearing in a golden body fair to rejoin in garden that very odd group. He had to thank them personally. XXX. The group had been escorted to the one place they had not planned on going. The cage's office in Suna. The man looked at them all with piercing eyes. It was unnerving to say the least. Finally, he spoke. First of all, I would like to thank you for being the distraction that I needed. I am in your debt. If you need help, just ask. The group of four just stared at the cage in shock. The man was not known to be this hospitable. Zabuza nodded. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, may we stay for a day so I can continue to train my students. Haku and Naruto still need to learn how to pull water out of air like this. The cage nodded. Well, it is odd. See you, Demon of the Mist, I will offer a place to stay for your time here. There is a hotel down the street that will give you a free night, on the house. Thank you Cage-sama, Zabuza said respectfully. Since that was arranged, the cage was curious about the man's students. Please, could you tell me about your students? They must be exceptional if they are being taught by you. The man could read people as well, and it seemed that this kid's tamed the infamous demon. He seemed to be a caring person to these kids, not he mass murderer that many said that he was. Zabuza nodded. He supposed that was fair. They were in the man's village, so he had to follow the rules. The girl is Gurren Lagann. She is a very good warrior and she is a crystal release user. She has many skills in combat that can turn any battle her way. Not many crystal users in the world nowadays. The cage replied. He knew of that old clan. Why one of them was here of all places made no sense. They were from Iowa, but they were said to have died out. She must be the last of her clan. Next is my first apprentice, Haku Yuki. He is an ice release user with exceptional speed, and I have the sinking feeling it borders on another bloodline. Zabuza replied, hoping the man knew what he was talking about. He wanted to tell Haku when he was ready. The leader of Suna nodded. That bloodline was indeed rare, and to have it in a Yuki clan member. Well, that would make them unstoppable in the speed department. It is such a shame that Kiri is the way it is. Konoha did try and get some of the bloodline users out of there, but that ended with the White Fang's death. Since then, no other village has bothered to try. Finally, we have my best, yet most idiotic student. Zabuza stated, ignoring Naruto's outburst. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. He is the son of my hero, Kushina Uzumaki, and the Yellow Flash. Not to mention the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I do hope he is stable. The reddish-haired Cage stated calmly. Zabuza's eye twitched at that. I trust the fourth Hokage's seal-making prowess, and from what I have seen, he is more human than any Jinchuriki I know. Good. The Cage said, very relieved as he sagged in his chair. His parents were strong, and with the Kyuubi in him and his heritage, he would be near unstoppable, if trained right. You seemed pretty nervous to know I was stable. Why? Don't tell me you have the Shukaku in someone. Naruto said with a roll of his eyes. When the Cage didn't answer and looked guilty, Naruto widened his eyes. No way. You did. Who? The Cage sighed. My youngest son. That made the group's eyes widen. I wanted a weapon for Suna, so I used my son, the biggest mistake of my life. Naruto was looking at him strangely, so he elaborated more. Naruto, this is not Konoha, so it is run differently. The council basically runs the village, and I am just a powerful figurehead. While I do have power, I cannot overthrow the council or go against their decision. The Cage sighed again. I have always been torn in the village and my family, which I value greatly. But, That decision of the village over my own family has backfired greatly. It killed my wife, and the Shukaku has warped the mind of my son, more so after the council decided that he was a failure and used my wife's brother to kill him. That didn't end well, for her brother. That's not right, Naruto growled. I take no value in what has been done, and it has torn apart my family. The K's replied. My oldest, Tamari, usually takes care of my younger sons and is always trying to get through to Gaara, the Jinchuriki. That has to. Gurren replied with a deadpan expression. Yes, and that is why I ask you to stay away from Gaara. He might try and kill you to prove his existence. The Cage replied, and the group nodded before leaving the office. XXX. The next day, after their morning training, Zabuza let them all do what they wanted to do because he got sick again. The man did not like the desert at all. That was fine with Haku and Gurren as they finally went out on their date. Naruto didn't go because he would feel like third wheel. So now he was wandering the streets of Suna, extremely bored, and that was never good for anybody. In his bored state, he ran into someone. Helped them up. He found that it was a cat suit makeup wear guy. Sorry about that, Mr. Cat. I am not a cat. The teen shouted. I am Kankuro. Well, nice to meet ya, man. Naruto replied before he noticed they were in front of bookstore and it was showing off the new issue of Ika Ika. While he was observing the bookstore, Kankuro took a look at the blonde, noticing he was the boy that he father talked about. You don't look like much, but my dad talked about you. Oh, you must be one of the Cage's kids. Naruto replied. Yep. Kankuro replied with a small but annoyed smirk. This kid would probably just kiss Hisnot that he knew who he was. However, Naruto's prankster mind made him smile. So, a Cage's kid, huh? I bet you can get away with more than others. You could say that, Kankuro replied, not entirely sure what this kid was getting at. How about we pull off a little prank? What do you have in mind? The older ninja asked. XXX. Okay, I go down there and calmly talk to those kids at the park. You whistle or something when you have the chakra strings attached and watch the freakout. Naruto said with a big shit-eating grin before he jumped off of the building they were on to the park below. Kankuro snickered. This kid is awesome. If this works and we escape, that means we are the best, yeah. He watched as Naruto started talking to a group of kids that seemed to like him. Soon, the puppet user has all his chakra strings attached and whistled. After that, he could not help but laugh his off. Naruto had got skeleton and Kankuro was making him do a dance, which freaked out the kids and made them all run, screaming home. What the hell are you doing? Came a female voice behind the puppet user, making him freeze. Kankuro nervously looked him to see his big sister. Hi Tamari. Reel in that fool and then get the hell out of my sight. The four-pony-tailed girl commanded, and the boy just nodded, knowing that this was not a good place to be if his sister was pissed. So he pulled the younger blonde to the roof and then got the hell of out dodge. Naruto reverted back to normal and said, Yo. Where's the fire? Kankuro didn't even bother answering as he ran away. Naruto, that was never a good sign, and by the tapping sound behind him, he knew they had been caught. Turning behind him, he saw a very beautiful blonde woman behind him. He recognized this older teen from the picture in the Cage's office. Ah, you must be Tamari. You would be correct. The blonde woman replied with a straight face. What the hell do you and my idiot brother think you were doing? A harmless prank, Naruto suggested nervously. It is stupid, but oddly comical. Tamari replied. While I admit it was stupid for kids and all that, I was extremely bored. Naruto groaned. My teammates are on a date and I am stuck wandering the streets of a village I know nothing about. Tamari took pity at that. He was a foreigner and she knew her brother wouldn't bother showing a kid around. And she did admit that it was a bit boring here, that was why she was always training. Taking another look at the boy her father was interested in, she could not help but think he was cute. And he was not eyeing her up like most of the idiots her age. Maybe I could give this kid a chance. Fine. I understand about the boredom this place has. Tamari replied and then turned to the side a bit so he didn't see her blush. I also wouldn't mind showing you around. Great. Naruto said happily. It's a date then. What? Tamari whipped her head around and was blushing a bit, as she was not used to going on any dates. Yeah, a pretty girl like you showing an outsider like me around this place. I don't mind calling it a date. Naruto replied. Tamari smiled at being called pretty. Most of the other guys just ogled her, but didn't dare ask her out due to her being the daughter of the cage. Yeah, I would like that, she said as she took his hand and they walked away from the park. A pair of teal green eyes watching them as they did. You are powerful, Uzumaki. You blood will fed mother. Right in the middle of their date, Haku and Gurren saw that Naruto was walking around the sand village with a very attractive blonde woman about their age. Gurren eventually recognized her as the Cage's oldest daughter. The hell is he doing with her? Gurren asked out of concern. While they flirted a lot, she saw the young blonde as more of a little brother. So naturally she would be concerned if some girl took an interest in him, especially if she was the Cage's daughter. I do not know, but before we left, I remember Zabuza-sama mentioning to keep an eye on him in case this sort of thing happened. The Cage didn't look like it, but he was very interested in Naruto. Haku replied. Well then, I am sure we can pick up this later, so let's make sure our little brother is safe. Gurren stated. Right. Haku affirmed. He wanted to protect his brother figure, and while he was enjoying the date, they could always pick this up later. However, another part of him wanted to strangle the younger blonde for being such a pain. XXX. This date was pretty interesting to say the least. As Tamari showed him around with a nice smile on her face, he noticed how everyone seemed to look at her with respect. However, the treatment he got was different. Some smiled at him and openly thanked him for helping keep their cage alive, others, mostly guys, glared at him. He just assumed it was because he was walking around the village with a hottie like Tamari. Hey, and you know, Tamari actually had a pleasant personality. Despite being the daughter of nobility, or this case the leader of a village, she was not snobbish. That was refreshing to him. Temrari smiled. If she had been with any other boy, they would probably make lewd comments and be all around s. However, not Naruto. Sure, he would flirt with her, but he was not a jerk about anything. He was quite the gentleman. His personality intrigued her as well. He would be really insightful and smart one minute and be incredibly stupid the next. He was an enigma to her and it was driving her nuts. There was one other thing. He was a Jinchuriki like her brother and he was incredibly stable. If she could find out how he does it, maybe she could help her little brother. She felt there was still hope for him after all. She was brought out of her thoughts when someone called her name. Looking at the person, she smiled. It was one of her female friends who had just become a genin, or was it that she was trying to be a genin, whatever. Hey Tamari. Oh, who is your friend? A brown-haired girl asked as she came up to them. Hey Matsuri, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Tamari replied. Hey, have you seen my brother at all? Sorry, no. Matsuri replied, and Naruto noticed that a few people around them tensed when the boy was mentioned, but the girl did not. Sorry to sound rude, but I noticed something. You didn't seem to tense up when Tamari mentioned her brother, unlike some of the passers-by. Naruto said, throwing both girls for a loop. I don't fear him like other people. Sure, his personality can be a bit abrasive and I am too shy to even talk to him, but I don't fear and hate him like the others do. Actually, I pity what has been done to him. The girl replied. On a nearby building, Gaara looked down and heard what she said. He honestly didn't know what to think to that. Ever since this new blonde came to town, Shukaku seemed to be interested in him and not in the usual way, yet. Hearing things like that made him think. I see. Naruto replied. I am glad you answered truthfully. Right, Tamari said, not really knowing how to respond to that. Well, we better get going. I still have show Naruto around the village and then get something to eat. As they kept on walking, Naruto decided to ask a question of his own. Tamari, what is Gaara like and what do you think of him? Tamari smiled. Gaara is like Matsuri described, but that is because there have been multiple assassinations on him. I am sure father told you about that. But the one that got to him the most and made him what he is today was the one from his own uncle. Harsh. Naruto grimaced. I don't hate my brother either. I actually hate what has been done to my baby brother. I actually tried to get to know him when we were younger, but father never thought it was good idea and I just went along with it. Tamari looked sad at this point. I was such a fool. Even if he says he loves only himself, I can see he is hurting. I just want my baby brother back. Naruto looked at her sadly, seeing a new side of her that most probably never did. It was a softer side to her. He put a comforting hand on her shoulder and smiled. There is always a way, maybe we'll find one. Tamari smiled with some tears threatening to spill over her eyes. Thanks, Naruto. XXX. And find a place to eat they did. They found a small barbecue place to eat and Naruto was enjoying it since he was paying and he encouraged Tamari to eat whatever she wanted. Normally, Tamari could pay since she was the Kage's daughter and she would get a small discount, but since this was a date, she caved. This boy actually made her smile as he told her jokes, the pranks he did, and his adventures with his team. She could tell he was a smart shinobi, in some aspects, but it was nice. So she told him stories of her missions out of the village with her brothers. He even listened to her and didn't even ogle her like most boys would. Hell, he seemed excited at some of the stuff they did and what she could do. It was nice. Hey, since you are a wind user as well, why don't we spar? Tamari suggested. Sure, I'm game, Naruto replied with a big smile. A date and a spar. This was awesome. As they got up to leave, however, Tamari noticed a lone Konoichi at a table. She recognized this person and walked over to her, confusing her blonde companion a bit. When they got there, the woman looked at them and smiled at Tamari. She had green hair, which she tied in a bun on top of her head with a hair needle running through it. She also had 2 locks of hair with orange tips framing each side of her face. She also had brown eyes. Her attire consisted of a sleeveless, backless top and short tight pants, with 2 lapels on the front and the back. She wore an obi around her waist, as well as purple arm warmers which extend up to her shoulders, and has bandages around her tights and ankles. Tamari, what can I do for you? I thought you were on a date. The woman replied with a sly smirk. Pakura, I just wanted to say hi to a friend since you are all by yourself, again. Did you fry someone again? Tamari asked with a small blush on her face. Pakura had a red face at that and she looked angry. That idiot called me so I taught him a lesson. Fair enough, Tamari replied. This is Naruto Uzumaki by the way. Naruto, this is Pakura, our resident Scorch release user. Naruto blinked at that. He had not expected to be pulled in the conversation once Tamari didn't immediately answer the woman's question. Scorch release? Don't think I have ever heard of it. Anyway, nice to meet you Pakura. He said as he shook her hand. XXX. What is she playing at? Introducing him to all these hot women. Gurren asked herself aloud. I think she is just being nice. Haku replied honestly. After all, that is what it seemed like to him. That's what they want you to think, Haku-chan. You may look like a girl in some aspects, but you defiantly don't have the mind of one. Gurren replied, making the ice user's eye twitch. XXX. Pakura smiled. This one actually seemed like a good guy. Too bad he was too young for her, and with Tamari. She took the hand and shook it. Yes, nice to see that Tamari found a guy that doesn't ogle every girl he sees. Not openly, of course. A quick once-over is good enough for me. Naruto counter in his mind. To answer your question, Scorch Release is a type of bloodline. It uses extremely hot fire to attack one's enemies. I think the elements are strong fire and wind affinities, which you seem to have. The woman replied. What? How did you know that? Naruto asked in shock. Pakura smiled. I can also read people's chakra through skin contact. You are very interesting. Hey, thanks. Naruto replied while rubbing the back of his head. Then a thought came to mind. Would it be possible to replicate the results of a bloodline through hard work? Pakura seemed to consider that for a moment. I think it could be possible, but it would be extremely hard to do. Thinking about being another Scorcher. Maybe. I have been wondering if I could combine elements, and now that I know it is possible, I am going to try and replicate my teammate Ice powers first. Naruto replied and he swore he heard someone yell out, copycat. Oh well, probably just his imagination. XXX. Shut it. Do you want us to be noticed? Gurren asked in a hushed whisper, taking this recon thing way too serious for Haku's taste. And with her hand over his mouth, he settled for giving her a deadpanned look. XXX. Well, good luck with that. Pakura chuckled. She didn't even want to think how much work that would be. Well, I have taken up enough of your time. You two should get back to your date. She laughed to herself as they quickly exited with small blushes on their faces. Yes, she could tell they had a thing for each other. Now I go to find someone who is not an XXX. For the past hour or so, Gaara watched his sister and the one called Naruto spar. Either with just ninjutsu or taijutsu. He could tell that his sister was impressed with the blonde boy. However, none of that actually mattered to Gaara. The words from earlier were still ringing within his mind. Yes, he loved only himself and that was what made him strong. However, Naruto told his sister that protecting those precious to you is what makes you truly strong. It was conflicting to his mind. And the words of his sister and that one villager was eating away at him. Pity and love. All he knew was hate. Those emotions were foreign to him and he needed to stop this. Kill them now then. Hey. The boy is a Jinchuriki like you. Kill them and you kill their tenant, and we will be stronger. I will love you for it. Son. Shukaku madly cackled to his container. Yes, if Gaara could get rid of the Kyuubi, then they would be one step closer to be the strongest. The balance would be upset but he didn't care. He was mad. Yes, mother. Gaara ground out his gravelly voice before he disappeared in a sand shunshin. He then reappeared between them. Mother wants your blood, Naruto Uzumaki. What the hell? Naruto asked aloud as he dodged a column of sand that came his way. Yo, what did I do to you? You cannot change me, Uzumaki. I am what I am and I will show you that my way is stronger. Fight only for yourself. Love only yourself. Gaara shouted madly. Stop this, Gaara. Temari shouted in fear for the blonde and her own brother. She didn't know how this battle would go. However, he just ignored her, but shot a stream of sand at her. That stream hardened around her, forming a cocoon around her, leaving only her head free. If you think your strength comes from protecting others weaker than you, show me. Defeat me and I will free her. If not, she dies. Shit. Naruto growled. This Gaara was really getting on his nerves, but if this is what I took to open his eyes, then so be it. Fine. Just me and you then. I will open your eyes, Gaara. Wait. Let us help. Haku shouted as he and Gurren appeared. No. This is a battle to prove whose ideal is stronger. This something I have to do and see if the path I am taking is the right one. Naruto said with conviction in his voice and they saw the determination in his eyes. They knew he was doing this because he too was a Jinchuriki. He had something to prove. Just don't die, idiot. Gurren shouted before they jumped over to Temari to make sure she was okay. You think Naruto will win? I am not sure. Temari replied honestly. She just hoped they didn't hurt each other too badly. The stare-off between Naruto and Gaara only lasted a few seconds before Gaara screamed in rage and sand swallowed him. It formed a tanuki shell around him. He was taking this fight seriously and he didn't feel liking around his opponent the way he usually did by just standing there and letting his sand take the blows. He was in this for the kill. Naruto nodded to himself as he charged the sand creature, only to be swatted away like a fly before Gaara manipulated the sand even more and kunai shot out of the ground toward the blonde. However, instead of a small number, it was thousands of them. Shit, Naruto said while in midair. Thinking quickly, he performed a jutsu he had been working on. Wind style. Solid cyclone shield. Before Naruto, a shield-like construct formed and not only stopped the attack, but combined with it. XXX. What the? I have never seen a wind attack like that. Temari nearly shouted. Apparently it is an attack of his own design. A voice said from behind the trio of observers. The Cage, Zabuza, and nearly all of Suna were watching the battle, hoping they didn't have to interfere. I knew he made his own attacks. It is hard to tell what all those shadow clones of his are always doing. Zabuza grumbled. He was not happy that he had to watch this fight. He thought Naruto was going to lay low. Of course not. Why would he do that? When the hell did you all get here? Gurren asked. Zabuza chuckled. Just now, but you were too focused on their battle to notice. XXX. Naruto stared at Gaara through his attack before he put a hand to his shield and said, charge. The shield shot off like a rocket and slammed into the one-tailed Jinchuriki. Gaara felt the air leave him and much more as he was propelled off his feet, but as expected, the nearby sand safely caught him. You will have to do a lot more than that, Uzumaki. Gaara roared as he charged the blonde in a blind rage. Apparently, Naruto said to himself as he took out kunai and added an explosive note to it. Unfortunately, I will have to use something from Konoha. He charged right at the walking sand monster and as Gaara took a swing at him, he slid underneath the red head. He then shouted, 1,000 years of great pain. As he stuck the kunai under the tail. Gaara's response was to whack him away with the sand tail while everyone laughed at that attack or was just annoyed. As he was flying away, Naruto smirked and said, boom. The effect was instant. A massive explosion overtook Gaara, breaking the integrity of his sand cloak. It just poured right off him. Seeing this, Naruto didn't let up. He created around a 200 shadow clone to beat Gaara. Naruto Uzumaki infinite combo. Gaara felt the unrelenting punches and kicks as all the clones kicked him up into the sky and then punched him down to the ground. He then noticed that 4 clones stayed in existence as all the other disappeared. And they were glowing. So, not taking any chances, he brought up his ultimate defense and cocooned himself in a sphere of sand. Naruto didn't know if this was going to work, but he had to try. Gaara, this is over. Wind style. 4 winds destruction. The wind-powered clones exploded upon contact when they touched Gaara's sand shield. The result was a fairly large sphere of wind, shredding everything in it to shreds. XXX. Holy crap, Kankuro yelled next to his sister. I don't know if Gaara's sand can stand up to that. It didn't. The Kazekage said with an even tone, very impressed with Naruto's skill with wind jutsu. What do you mean? Temari asked weakly within her cocoon. Normally she would be dead by now, but it seemed that Gaara did care for his sister somewhat. Look, the man said and both siblings paled. The sphere of sand was no longer there. The hardened pieces were all over the place and they were quickly dissolving. In the middle of the impact zone, Gaara lay on his back and anyone could clearly see that he had multiple gashes along his person. Oh, shit, Kankuro said with fear. No one had ever gotten past Gaara's second defense, which was his sand armor, and now this kid comes out of nowhere and makes his brother bleed. It was amazing and scary at the same time. Temari looked on in fear, hoping he was okay. Okay, he pulls out the ultimate poke and now he has another new wind jutsu that completely shreds everything in it. Sure, that makes sense. Gurren shrugged. It was kind of funny though. Haku replied, getting a roll of the eyes from his friend. However, Zabuza didn't say anything. This fight was something else and those moves interested him. A true battle genius indeed. XXX. What is this feeling, mother? This hurts worse than those punches and kicks. There is also this warm feeling. What is it? Gaara asked aloud to the beast within. He raised one of his aching arms and saw a horrific sight to him. He was actually all cut up and was bleeding. Blood. My blood. Gaara screamed in horror as the surrounding sand exploded all around him. Naruto actually fell on his as the column of sand rose up. It was so unexpected to him that he didn't know what to think. Soon, the column of sand began to take shape. It was the shape of the one-tailed demon, Shukaku. Oh, craptastic. I will not let you erase my existence, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara shouted in panic before he let the demon take over for him. Yeah, he was that desperate. Finally, I am free. Shukaku yelled in delight before his massive head turned sharply to Naruto. Hey, and now I have the first person I want to kill in my sights. Goodbye, Kyuubi. Not going to happen, Naruto said aloud as he took out his scythe and ran up the beast's forearm as it reached for him. Fire style. Death's fiery touch. The blade of the scythe was immediately set ablaze as he channeled the fire chakra through it. However, due to the scythe's connection to death, the fire was not just red, it was black as well. Naruto then stabbed the fiery blade into Shukaku's forearm as he ran up, carving a fiery path as he ran. The effect was instant because it was superheated, the path and all the sand around it turned to glass. However, Shukaku didn't seem all that bothered by it as he used his other hand to grab the smaller blonde and chucked him away. XXX. Oh, that's not good. Haku said as he saw the sand demon throw Naruto pretty hard and far. This fight is far from over. Zabuza replied, catching everyone's attention. Are you nuts, man? Kankuro shouted. I doubt anyone can survive that. There is one jutsu that I know he made and it is the perfect time to use it. Zabuza replied, he asked me one day if I had ever seen any of the fourth Hokage's signature attacks. I said no, but I knew someone who ventured out of the village one day and saw both attacks being used. I told him about it and I have a feeling I know what he did. That seemed to confuse everyone but the Kazekage and he looked on in excitement. If anyone could derive a jutsu just from hearing about an original one, then they were a true genius in his books. XXX. As Naruto was flying through the air, Naruto barely managed to make any hand signs at the speed he was going, but he made it just in time. Thinking of the jutsu he had wanted to try for a long time, he shouted, Razanango. Before Naruto hit the ground hard, he was surrounded in a fairly large sphere of spiraling pure chakra. The sphere hit the ground and split the sand all around it, and as far as anyone could see, Naruto was just fine. Shukaku growled at that. Why Wan, tu die? Wind style. Drilling air bullet. Oh shit. Naruto said, knowing his spiraling protection was not yet strong enough to take an attack of that magnitude. Everything went in slow motion for the blonde. He saw the massive wind attack coming at him and desperately thought of a way to escape this since he also knew he was not fast enough to get away either. Suddenly, he looked at his scythe, the blade more specifically. There lay strange symbols that made him think it might work. Flashback. Sensei, there are some strange symbols on the scythe blade. Any clue what they mean? Naruto asked as he showed Zabuza what he was talking about. He couldn't ask the Kyuubi at the moment because it was being a non-sleeping. Zabuza looked at the blade in careful detail while also not touching in the blade because only Naruto was allowed to do that. He recognized the symbols and said, I had a friend once who was a summoner, so I am going to say that they are summoning symbols. Hey, I'll be back in an hour, I am going to try it. Naruto said before running off. Zabuza had a deadpanned expression on his face. Dumbass. He'll be back because he doesn't even know how to summon yet. End flashback. Nodding to himself, he knew he had to summon something and he knew just what to summon. Quickly biting his thumb, he spread blood on the blade before slamming the handle of the weapon on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. Gluttony. XXX. Okay, what the hell is that? Kankuro looked on annoyed and disgusted at the same time. For in front of everyone to see was a giant humanoid monster. Naruto was on top of a giant and fat guy that had its ribcage burst open with a giant eye in it. One of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony. Zabuza said, Naruto has an odd summoning contract with that scythe of his. He is able to summon the god of death and by that way, he is able to summon the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues. Very odd. The Kazekage replied, not knowing what to think. XXX. The large wind attack was easily eaten up by gluttony. Alright, it is time to take the Shukaku down and since you can basically eat any matter, eat him. Yeah. The large sin screamed in delight as they charged Shukaku. What the hell? The sand demon shouted as he saw that he was being eaten. So he did the natural thing. Reformed from the surrounding sand and fought back. It was like watching a gruesome battle between 2 titans. Finally, Shukaku had enough and bashed the duo away. Fine, I'll use this. It managed a backflip, in which Naruto finally saw a sleeping Gaara on his head. However, that is not what really caught his attention. The Shukaku had expelled a massive amount of chakra in the air, before it formed into a large ball, shrinking, and then Shukaku ate it. Now this had Naruto and a lot of people nervous. Naruto was not sure this was something gluttony could take, but there was not time to do anything about it because the sand demon expelled the energy in a massive blast of energy. One-tailed beast ball. Shukaku screamed and the beam of energy shot out towards Naruto and gluttony. Naruto looked on calmly before sighing. Absorb as much as you can, gluttony. Then you can go. Gluttony didn't seem to mind. It seemed excited to eat something new. However, as the energy struck, he figured out why Naruto said what he did. Even if it was the weakest of the 9 demons, that attack was powerful. The energy alone was making it sick and it groaned aloud once it was over. Taking Naruto's advice, it quickly got the hell out of there. That just left Naruto in the Shukaku, and it seemed the demon was still rearing to go, and it was excited that it killed something already. Activated your death form, came Kyuubi's voice. I highly doubt that fighting that thing as the walking skeleton will help at all. Naruto deadpanned. While you do not have much control yet over that power, I will give you my power, creating something that the original Grim Reaper could do. Kyuubi explained. All right then, Naruto said aloud as he saw the Shukaku get ready to attack him again. He went skeleton, making the giant sand demon laugh a bit before he saw what happened next. Everyone felt the power of the Kyuubi enter the fight, but not in the form it took. Naruto was covered in the initial chakra cloak of the Kyuubi, but it looked more like pure fire than anything else. So basically a walking skeleton that was on fire, in the desert. Normally this would not be a power boost, but Naruto actually felt powerful. Well, this is new. Naruto said in a raspy voice before he used that power boost to quickly move out of the way of the beast's second drilling air bullet. Nice. Very nice. Naruto stated. He then brought his scythe up in another attack. Fire style. Hell's punishment. He brought down the scythe into the sand and surprisingly created a fissure in the earth, where it looked like the fire and brimstone of hell was breaking free. And it was, as thousands of burning hands shot out and latched onto the Shukaku's form. However, what truly scared the demon was that it could not simply escape the burning limbs and reform. It was like they were latched onto its soul. What is this? Shukaku screamed in fright, something the cage noticed. Arg, it burns. What is this? Not even a demon is safe from hell's judgment. A jutsu that Kyuubi taught me. A jutsu made by the first Grim Reaper shinobi. You cannot move because they are latched onto your soul and are burning your very existence. However, it is not affecting your jailer, just you. Naruto explained as he calmly walked over to the shrinking and screaming sand demon. Also with this jutsu, it will ensure that you cannot cause harm to Gaara anymore. Fear of the damned always bites back to those who have felt their touch. Ah! Shukaku screamed as he was forcefully shoved back into Gaara, who woke up in time to see Naruto's flaming form walking towards him. No, stay away, Gaara said as he fell on his in fright. My existence won't be erased. I want to live. Naruto let go of both powers and went back to normal to give Gaara a sympathetic look. Then live for real this time. That comment froze the sand user. I know the pain. It's, but you have to find someone to let it ease away. Sure, you will never forget it, but let someone be your light. I have already proved that my way is better than staying in the darkness and relying only on yourself. You still have family, Gaara. Don't throw that away. He is right, Gaara. I still think of you as my son and I am sorry for the shit I put you through. I hold no value in it. The cage said as he and the rest of the observers walked over to them, seeing that the battle was over. I will try to be a better father and leader. That's good, Naruto said, swaying on his feet. Now if you don't mind, I am going to pass out now. I guess even a Jinchuriki can run out of steam once in a while. I got ya, Haku said as he held up his friend. Naruto smiled before falling asleep. Zabuza just smiled proudly at his student. XXX. A few days later, the small group could be seen at the gates of the sand village. The cage and his children were personally seeing them off. It is too bad none of you can stay. The cage stated, we could use some powerful shinobi. I still have to train these brats some more and I have my own problems to deal with. It would not feel right bringing your village into it. Zabuza replied good-naturedly. I see. The man replied, well, I have news for you all and some news for my own village. Naruto, I received word that without you in Konoha, problems have arisen. People are saying that it will be in a civil war like in Mist, but others feel that it will pass over soon. Oh shit, Naruto groaned. They must have spread the word of his true nature and heritage. It didn't matter though, he was not going back. Some people might be on his side, but he was not going to risk anything. So on that note, a lot of jobs have been coming in since then. You have saved our village in more than one way. If you ever need help, you have the backing of the Sand Village. Just so you know. Oh, and here. The cage replied on a happy note, giving him a scroll. Naruto was shocked at that. He didn't really know what to feel. Thank you, Naruto said with a bow before he took the scroll. He would look at it later. Gaara then walked up to Naruto. I will do as you say. I will open up more to this village and hope it accepts me even after all that I have done. Gaara, to make it easier on you, in addition to your family, you already have one friend and that it me, Naruto replied with a big smile as he held out his hand. Gaara, shell-shocked, numbly took the hand and they shook. Thank you, and I will protect my precious people like you have. Aw, what the hell, you got me as a friend as well. Gurren replied with smirk. You need to have some hot friends. Haku smiled while rolling his eyes. Oh yes, that is so true. But seriously, I too will be your friend. Gaara nodded in thanks. Kankuro shook his head with a smile. Well Naruto, if you are ever in town again, be sure to look me up. I am sure we can find another person to prank. He laughed at that until his sister whacked him upside the head. She walked right in front of the blonde and smiled. I never got to properly thank you for, well, giving me back my little brother and my family. She leaned in and kissed him, tongue and all. When she pulled back, she laughed at his look. He looked like he caught the backlash of a bomb. Next time you're out here, don't be a stranger and yes, I had fun on our date. Since Naruto could only get out non-coherent speech, Zabuza decided to speak for him. Oh, I am sure he will be more than delighted to see you again. Come on brats, let's get the hell out of this desert. Naruto just followed along with a shit-eating grin and before long, Haku and Gurren were messing with him. The cage, however, looked at the disappearing blonde, then at his daughter and underneath his veil, he smiled. Before long, Zabuza looked back at the village behind them and chuckled. Man, just 13 and you are already a lady killer. Huh, I don't want to kill women. Naruto replied and there was a collective sound of forehead slaps. Somewhere is the land of rivers. So, he recreated the attack as a defense. An older voice asked. And he did it only using the stories I told you to tell him about. Impressive. Barely. While he may have pulled it off to cushion the impact, he truly does not have the jutsu down. He has to learn the original to grasp the concept. Zabuza replied. What he did was basically pulling off a weak rotation that the Hyugas use. If he had used it to defend against Shukaku's second drilling air bullet, his blood would have painted the sands. I see. The older voice replied. Lord Jiraiya, I need help to teach him that attack. Zabuza stated. Jiraiya of the Sannin. He was a man of many so-called talents. He was Konoha's top spy master. Thanks for listening. In the next part. In the meantime, please leave a review, I would love to hear your feedback. Especially if it helps me improve the overall story.